CEO took her mute daughter to the playground, froze when a black single dad made her speak, first time. The morning sun spilled gold across the park, warming the air with a sense of possibility. The playground was alive with squeals, chatter, and the metallic rhythm of the merry-go-round. On a swing tucked near the line of trees, 7-year-old Emily Hayes sat perfectly still. Her small hands gripped the swing chain so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her lips pressed into a thin line, carrying the weight of 3 long years of silence. Olivia Hayes, her mother, sat on a nearby bench, phone in hand. She wasn't scrolling, just holding it up like armor, avoiding the stares of other parents who sometimes looked at her with pity. Outwardly she seemed composed, but inside she carried the same heavy loop she had lived with since the accident, the day Emily's voice went silent. A warm, hearty laugh broke her thoughts. Olivia looked up. Near the tire swing, a man was pushing his son, a boy about Emily's age. He looked to be in his 30s, dressed simply in a faded navy hoodie and worn jeans. His skin was dark, his laugh deep, and his presence seemed to brighten the air around him. As the swing slowed, the man caught Olivia's eyes and nodded politely. With his son at his side, he walked toward Emily's swing. He crouched down low, carefully lowering himself to Emily's level, and gave her the gentlest smile. "Hi there," he said softly, his voice pitched like a calm invitation. He lifted his hand, palm open, not demanding, just offering. Then he glanced at Olivia, silently asking permission, before turning back to Emily. "Mind if we say hello?" Emily didn't move. Her silence stretched, as it always did. Olivia leaned forward, ready to protect her daughter, but something about the way this man waited, unhurried, patient, made her stop. Emily studied his hand for what felt like an eternity. Slowly, almost cautiously, she lifted her own tiny hand and placed it against his. His smile widened, warm but steady, as though he had been expecting this fragile connection. "You know," he said gently, like he was sharing a secret, "my son thinks the big slide over there is only for the bravest kids. But I've met children who are far braver." He touched lightly under his own chin, then let the air breathe between them. A hush settled, fragile as glass, and then Emily's lips parted. "How?" The word slipped out, faint but audible. Olivia's heart skipped, her pulse racing so hard she could hear it in her ears. 3 years of silence broken by this stranger in a hoodie. The man didn't react with shock or excitement. His voice remained steady. "Because brave kids aren't always the loudest," he said. "They speak up when it really matters." Emily blinked, weighing his words. Her grip on the swing chain loosened. She whispered, "What's your name?" "Jack," he said, "and this is Mason, my son." Mason, tousle-haired and shy, gave a small wave. Emily returned her gaze to Jack. "I'm Emily," she said, the words trembling but real. Olivia covered her mouth with her hand, tears stinging her eyes. Jack's eyes softened when Emily spoke her name. He leaned closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, the best slide here isn't the tall one," he said. "It's the small one behind the sandbox. The sun warms it just enough so you go faster." Emily's eyebrows lifted ever so slightly, curiosity flickering across her face. Jack glanced at her mother, silently asking for permission again. Olivia swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion, and nodded. "Go on, sweetheart." Jack didn't take Emily's hand. Instead, he walked beside her at her pace, letting her choose how quickly to move. Mason ran ahead, pointing out the small slide. Emily followed carefully, her steps slow but steady. Olivia remained on the bench, her body trembling as she listened to something she hadn't heard in years, her daughter's laughter. It was light and cautious at first, then brighter, like stitching a torn piece of fabric back together. When they returned, Emily's cheeks were pink, her lips forming the faintest smile. She climbed back onto the swing as though reclaiming an old part of herself. Jack turned to Olivia, his voice quiet. "She has a lot inside her. She just needs someone who asks the right way." Olivia's voice shook. "How did you do that?" Jack shrugged lightly. Sometimes kindness is the only language that works. The breeze tugged at his hoodie. Olivia studied him, sensing something beyond his patience, something layered with its own scars. She knew this was not a man to thank quickly and walk away from. He had cracked open a door she thought was locked forever. "Jack, wait," Olivia said, as he began to gather Mason's things. Mason's small hand wrapped securely in his father's, his dark eyes curious. A dozen questions raced through Olivia's mind, but only one reached her lips. "Would you have coffee with us?" "My treat. Her voice faltered, emotion rising. "It's been 3 years since I heard her speak." Jack's jaw tightened. He looked at Mason, then back at her. "I don't usually do coffee shops, but there's a little diner on Oak Street. Quiet." "Perfect," Olivia said quickly, her voice trembling but determined. "I'll follow you." Before they left the playground, Emily tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Can Mason ride in our car?" Jack smiled gently, steadying the moment with a calm rule. "Maybe next time, kiddo. Today we ride together." Emily nodded, and Olivia saw something shift in her daughter's expression. Acceptance. A small step, but a meaningful one. 15 minutes later, they were seated at a booth in the diner. The air smelled faintly of chocolate pie. Mason slid into the seat across from Emily, the two of them whispering as if they had been friends for years. The server dropped off menus. Jack simply said, "Black coffee." His hand rested on the table, rough and calloused, marked with old scars. When he shifted, his sleeve slid back, revealing a faded hospital wristband. He quickly tugged it down, but Olivia had already noticed. "Were you just in the hospital?" she asked gently, her voice more invitation than interrogation. Jack was silent for a moment before nodding. "Recently." Olivia didn't press. She simply waited, watching Emily giggle as Mason slid her a piece of pie. After a long pause, Jack continued on his own. "I just got out of VA rehab a month ago," he said quietly. "Used to be a paramedic. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Last one." His eyes dropped to the table. "Our truck hit an IED. My legs took most of it. My best friend didn't make it." Olivia's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Jack gave the smallest nod, his gaze steady but far away. Jack took a sip of his coffee, his hand steady but his eyes shadowed by memory. "Since then, loud noises knocked me sideways. Sirens, crowds, even TV sometimes. So I moved to the edge of town with Mason. Quieter there. Safer." Olivia listened intently, her hands folded on the table. She wanted to ask more, but she held back, letting him choose what to share. The kids were laughing softly across from them, their whispers weaving something light in the middle of a heavy story. Jack exhaled slowly. "I started volunteering at the park, not because I could fix anyone, but because kids, they reflect safety back at you if you give it first." Olivia's gaze softened. "That's what you did with Emily," she said. "You didn't force her to talk, you gave her space until she wanted to." She hesitated, then added, "I've taken her everywhere. Doctors, therapists, specialists. I run a medtech company focused on communication. I've bought every device you can imagine. But none of it could replace what you did this morning. You lowered yourself, opened your hand, and waited." Her voice broke slightly. "Where do you learn something like that?" Jack gave a faint smile. "My sister stopped speaking for a year when our dad left. Everyone thought she was broken. She just stopped trusting. I didn't drag words out of her. I just stayed until she wanted to answer. Sometimes that's all it takes." The server returned with another plate of pie. Mason pushed the bigger slice toward Emily, who giggled and accepted it shyly. Olivia felt hope flicker inside her chest, a feeling she had nearly forgotten. Watching her daughter, she turned back to Jack. "You may not realize it, but what you carry, it matters, more than most people ever see. You opened a door for Emily that no professional could unlock." Jack looked down at his scarred hands. "Most companies wouldn't want me on their team," he said lightly, though the weight behind his words was unmistakable. "Too many gaps on my resume. Too many medical notes. And I'm a black man on top of it. Some doors close before I even knock. Olivia leaned forward. Then maybe they're the wrong doors. I'd like to talk more about how you did what you did today. Not as charity, real work, with real value. Jack studied her for a long moment, then gave a half smile. You don't owe me anything. Honestly, the kids saved me more than I saved them. Maybe it's both, Olivia said gently. You give them safety. They give you reason. Suddenly, a plate crashed in the kitchen. Olivia jumped. Jack closed his eyes, exhaled deeply, and dropped his shoulders, grounding himself before looking back up. Mason gave him a small nod, almost like a signal between them. Emily, startled, copied Mason's long breath, her body slowly settling again. Olivia stared in amazement. You just taught her to steady herself, she whispered. Jack gave a quiet smile. Before you can calm a child, you have to anchor yourself first. The rest of the meal passed in small, careful moments. Emily tugged Olivia's sleeve as they stood to leave. Mom, she whispered, can we go to the park again tomorrow? Ask Mason if he can come. Jack looked at Mason, who grinned. We'll have to check the slide champion schedule, he teased. Olivia's heart swelled. She turned to Jack, her voice trembling but sure. Thank you for giving us a new beginning. Jack shook his head, adjusting Mason's jacket. All I did was wait. As they left the diner, the late afternoon sun stretched their shadows long across the pavement. 4 figures walking together, not as strangers anymore, but as something new. Olivia squeezed Emily's hand, her chest lighter than it had been in years. She knew this was only the first step, but it was the step she had prayed for. Her daughter's voice returning, carried on the steady ground of kindness. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching. Curious.